We're back with big changes at the southern border. A federal judge has blocked a COVID-era policy that kept asylum seekers out of the U.S.
Yeah, that controversial rule known as Title 42 was put in place by the Trump administration back in 2020. Since then, Customs and Border Protection agents have turned away migrants 2 million times before they could make asylum claims. For more now, we're joined by NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley. Julia, good morning to you. So yesterday's ruling comes after some back and forth over Title 42. Back in April, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas announced his agency would end that policy, but that plan ended up being blocked before the rule was even lifted. So how did we end up here?
So this is part of a separate lawsuit brought by advocates saying that Title 42 should have never been in place, that by and large it's not effective as a public health authority because so many other restrictions on COVID-19 have lifted across the United States. How could you keep it in place just to keep immigrants from crossing the southern border? They were accusing the Trump administration and now the Biden administration of using it as an immigration enforcement tool, not a public health measure. What this means is that we could see as soon as the beginning of next year a large number of migrants starting to cross the border and come in here and claim asylum. We've also seen predictions both from people at the border and policymakers in Washington who think that this will be a magnet to drive more migration to the southern border. And as you know, we were already at record highs last year. We heard from the Biden administration last night in a filing. They've asked this judge to give them 5 weeks to be able to prepare to lift Title 42, but it doesn't appear that they will appeal. They will go ahead and lift it. They're just asking for 5 weeks' time.
So, Julia, I mean, looking at the numbers, Customs and Border Patrol says more than 230,000 migrants were apprehended at the southwest border. That was just last month. So what happens now? What does this really mean for asylum seekers trying to cross the border?
Well, I'm glad you pointed out that number because, yes, they apprehended 230,000, but about half of those were turned back into Mexico under Title 42, meaning they weren't allowed in the country. They weren't allowed to claim asylum. Those allowed in are often people from countries that won't take them back and they won't take their migrants back. So therefore, Mexico won't take those migrants back. That would be like countries Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua. But in this case, the Central American countries have been subjected to Title 42, meaning they haven't been allowed in the U.S. Now they will be allowed in. And so when the numbers start coming out in January, if the judge grants that 5-week delay, those numbers will actually reflect who has been allowed to come into the United States and claim asylum. It doesn't mean they can stay forever, but it does mean they're at least given a shot at our immigration court process.
Important updates. All right, Julia, thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.